Hello, right, thank you very much to everyone who participated and asked some questions. I'm genuinely grateful. I had visions of no one actually asking anything, so thank you very much. I'm very honoured that you took the time to ask me some questions. So, I haven't really read any of these. I kind of thought it'd be more interesting and more fun to read them basically as I read them as I read them. Starting with the first question. So, if I was to guess how many snares and drum kits do I own, and do I rotate kits when playing out or gravitating towards just a few? So, the first part of that question, this year's been a bit of a strange one for me, certainly in the last 6 months, because I've actually sold some drums. And I haven't done that for a long, long time. And it came about really... what I've done actually, I've sold a few snare drums, and I part exchanged 2 snare drums for the Q14x8 steel, which is sort of down there somewhere. And I also sold a few snare drums, and that's nothing really particularly high end, by the way, before anyone contacts me. Really, just because I kind of figured that I wasn't really going to use them. And to have them sitting around, particularly in the case of like the two, I had 2 Black Beauties. I sold them both, and I found that I was really just holding on to them for the sake of holding on to them, for the sake of them being here and saying, "Oh, I've got a Black Beauty." I just never used them, and I'm happier now knowing that basically they've gone off. One's gone off. Has returned home to the US, and that's gone into a very nice man's collection, and I know that he is loving it and cherishing it. And the other one basically has gone into basically higher inventory over here in London, so that's going to get played as well. So that's kind of cool. But I peaked at 155 snare drums. I think probably now, as I say, I've sold a few, and I've subsequently bought a few as well, and I've got 2 more kind of on order that are being built within the next few months. I would kind of guess at around 150 now. I keep basically all of my. I have a spreadsheet with serial numbers and descriptions and things of pretty much everything in here that's relatively up to date, and that includes symbols as well. And that was the most boring thing I've ever done in here, was sitting here going through a couple of hundred symbols, noting down serial numbers. God, that was boring. But what I need to do is basically update that database and add what I've got since, and you know, that's really the only way I can sort of reasonably get an accurate figure on how many, but I think it's around 150 snare drums. In terms of kits, now I had I sold a kit which was the Hayman Gold Ingot kit, which I don't ever think I featured on here. I sold that, and that went to live in France. And I had another kit which was kind of included in my sort of inventory tally, that went back to where that belonged as well. So I think I had 20 kits, including those 2, so that would bring it down to 18. I've got one more kit which is currently being, it's currently a couple of 100 miles away from here, which is being refinished and tidied up, and so I can basically use it. And that's the Artstar 2, which I picked up a few months ago, which hopefully will be turning down to London again in the near future, and I will do a video on that. But I think it's about 18 or 19 kits. I did a little sort of count earlier on in here, and I only came up with about 14 kits, and I know it's more than that. So, or maybe 15 kits. I know it's more than that, but and that sounds terrible, doesn't it? Yeah, it's about 18 or 19 kits. In terms of do I rotate kits when playing out or find myself gravitating to just a few? So, right, my regular gigging kit for the band that I've been playing with for the last 5 years is actually this, and I've mentioned this before. It's the Pearl wood fiberglass reissue kit from a few years ago. And I love these drums. I really do. I've done at least one video. I think it was a couple of videos. But my this is the 10-inch tom, and I now my current kit for this is 10, 12, 14, 16. So it's 2 racks and 2 floors, and I've got an 8-inch on the way. More simply because I found out that I could still back order some smaller drums, so I ordered a 14, and then I thought I'll order the 8 as well. So just because I really happen to like these drums that much. Very strangely, I've only got 2 Pearl kits, and they're both 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 22. That was a complete coincidence, but with this is basically my regular gigging kit, and it is really mainly for sort of 3 reasons. So the first one is that the 12 and the 16 are they're both internally mic'd, so they're permanently set up. The mics basically stay in that kit. It'll stay in those 2 toms. The kick drum is also internally mic'd, and the mic stays in there. The second reason is that the bass drum has the band logo on it. So if I do want to happen to take another kit out, it means a whole lot of messing around to swap the heads over. And the third reason is that kind of the people in the band who have an opinion, it kind of really it makes them happier, and it's not that's an overwhelming thing for me, but the thing was a few years ago, and it actually wasn't to do with this kit, but it sort of became, I suppose, to do with this kit. Was a few years ago, the guitar player wrote to me. He sent me an email saying, you know, these drums sound really great. Why can you not just use them all the time? And I thought, you know, if he's taken the time to think that and to write me, the least I can do is oblige. So I tend to sort of for that band, I tend to just basically stick with the wood fiberglass kit. However, on the other side of that, I have occasionally sort of just taken another kit out for the hell of it. And if I do like a bigger gig, up until last year, we basically did an annual gig in a very big room with a nice big stage, and then I would take out different kits. So I took this kit out one year. Craviotto's been out and done it about 3 times. I took the RCI blue kit out, acrylic kit out one year. But for the most part, it's the wood fiberglass. Now, if I do anything else, I've been doing a depth gig now with my old band for the last year, only a couple of gigs. And I've got another one on New Year's Eve of this year. So I think that'll be my 5th gig with them, and I haven't used the same kit on any of those gigs. So if basically if it's not my regular band situation, I do like to chop and change however the mood takes me, either well before the gig and I'm thinking about it, or on the day if it doesn't really make any difference. But there are certain kits which for me lend themselves to certain types of gig that I do. So for the New Year's Eve gig, which I'm doing this year, I will quite possibly take the Artstar 2 when hopefully it turns up by then. Alternatively, I've used the Star Classic Maple. With that, I've used the Rockstar Pro. I took the Grand Star out, and I think for me, for that particular gig, which is just it's a mixture of modern to sort of, I suppose, 60 stuff, 70 stuff, but for me it just has to have a certain vibe to it in order for me to feel good about playing on the night. So for instance, I wouldn't use the Hayman the other Heyman kit that I've got, which is a 26, 13, 16. They're lovely sounding drums, but a 26-inch kick drum just isn't going to work for anything really at the moment for me. I probably wouldn't use the Club Custom for that gig either. It's just the wrong sort of vibe really for me. Last New Year's Eve I used this with that particular band. You know, and actually the Janista as well. I probably wouldn't use that because it's a 24 by 18 inch bass drum and it's a little bit too I think for that particular gig. So my answer really, that was the long answer, but the short answer is I do chop and change, but it has to suit, in my mind, the music overall before, you know, as to then what it filters down to what I actually take. So, okay, just throwing this one out there because it's probably the question everyone wants to know, but how are you able to afford your collection? Not as in how much money do you make, etc. Well, that would be an easy one right now, but I'm not going to go into that. But do you take your gear in and out? Do you operate more like a shop trading, etc.? And how did you start? How did you get started collecting? Do you ever think you'll reach the Holy Grail, which is the Tom Bell Brass, the 80s one? And then do companies send you free, this is regards to the actual reviews that I do, which aren't like I suppose on here, but do companies send you free gear to review, or do they send it for a limited time and then ask to send it back? Do you do the same with other collectors' gear? Steve, thank you for that. The wonderful load of questions. So right, so the first one is how am I able to afford everything? Well, I actually did an actual full video on that a few years ago, and it's entitled, I think it is actually entitled, How Do I Afford All This? So Steve, I'll send you back in probably about 18 months or so. The short answer of that is really, I suppose actually there's a complicated answer and a less complicated answer. So the first thing is gigging. Obviously saving up gigging money. There's one way of doing it, but historically, for the last few years, what I've done is I've been able to get a credit card and then put stuff on the credit card and then use the gigging money to then pay off the credit card. So credit in general is one way, and there's also PayPal credit as well. I think the other real main thing is that at the moment as I said I've sold a few drums which have then subsequently basically gone back into paying for other bits and pieces. Yeah, I think to be honest, it might be easier just to go and watch the other video on that one. But yeah, I mean, do I rotate gear in and out? I think I probably covered that sort of already. Yes and no. Historically, up until about 6 months ago, no, not really. Right now I have actually sold a few bits, as I mentioned. I may still sell some bits and pieces. I don't know at the moment. I think kit wise, I've probably got everything that I could, well, I've got way more than I could ever want, but I think I feel quite content with the kits that I've got. Snare drums is a weird thing because obviously as things, technologies change, companies develop new stuff. I think it would be difficult to say. I think it would be difficult to actually say that I feel like full using that analogy on the snare drum side of things. But I think for now, as of this moment, I'm probably okay and done for a while. That's not to say I'm going to run out of stuff to do on the channel, because I'm not. I think I know I've covered that in another video somewhere, but whether or not I've actually released it yet, I can't remember. But I think at the moment, I may sell the odd bits and pieces, but at the moment I'm still trying to find the time to actually sit down and sort through other bits and pieces, all of the bits and pieces, to see what else might get moved on. But I mean, generally, no, I haven't historically moved on a lot of gear, which is how I probably ended up with all of this stuff in the first place. But I think now my mindset's kind of changed a little bit, and I have sold a few bits. I haven't sold any Craviottos, nor will I. Or certainly not for the foreseeable future, and I haven't sold anything like the Star Reserves or the Dunettes. I've mostly sold some Ludwigs, actually. I sold the two Black Beauties. I sold a 400. Oh well, so I part exchanged a Slingland Artist and the Mapex Cherry that I had. I've sold a DW collectors. I sold a DW, one of the 12-inch Bell Bronze that I had. That lives in Germany now. Yeah, I've sold a few bits, but I don't know about sort of the future. It would just depend, I suppose. Right, do I operate? Oh, well, do I operate more like a shop trading up? No, not really. I have been asked about that before, actually. No, this is all mine. How did I get started collecting? Oh, that's a fantastic question. It happened. That's about as simple as the answer as I could probably give. It just happened. I remember when I lived with my parents many years ago. I remember, particularly with the Craviotto stuff. I remember. I already had a few snare drums at that point, but I remember like getting the 5 Craviottos that I had. 5 Craviottos that I had at the time, and I remember going out into the garden and taking a photo 3, 2, 1 of all of those, and that was kind of like I think that was kind of like the start of certainly the Craviotto collection. But it genuinely just happened. I think I may have mentioned this before. A friend of mine said to me once, so, you know, when are you going to get to 100? And I kind of laughed it off at the time, and then counted them probably not that long after. Realised I had 109 snare drums and didn't know when that happened. And that was a bit of a weird realisation, because I don't really... I just don't know how it happened. I saw Craviotto. I think the only thought behind it was a two thought process. So I kind of was not into vintage drums as such, but I was interested in vintage drums. But I realised that kind of the vintage drum thing was all completely sewn up by people like Bunny Carlos, Mike Chiodo, and then you've got well, obviously Mike Chiodo's got basically everything. Bunny Carlos has anything and everything decent that's Ludwig. Then you had Chet Falzarano, who had like a huge collection of Billy Gladstones. Not that I'd been able to afford those. And then over here, there's a guy called Dave Brown who had a lot of stuff. And it was like, you're never going to really get, especially if you're on the fringes looking in and didn't really have any connections. You're never going to get any of the decent stuff, any of the vintage stuff. So I kind of like looked at the Craviotto stuff, which was obviously 13 years ago was plentiful, and but it was still kind of niche, and obviously Johnny was around making the stuff, and it was kind of that thought of well, I suppose if I'm going to collect anything, that would probably be a good thing to do. But in terms of how did it get to this, it just happened. Do I think I would ever reach the Holy Grail, the Tama 80s Bell Brass? No. It's funny enough, there's an older one on eBay in the UK right now, which kind of It looks a little bit like Swiss cheese. It's got far too, you know, I don't know why you, I mean, I'm not criticising anyone, the person that did it or whatever, but why you do that to a drum that's basically been held in fairly high esteem for quite a long time, I don't know. But, you know, it's, I think that there's a reason why those 80s bell brass drums cost so much, and it's because there's not that many of them, and because people hold them in such high esteem, which obviously then has that effect. The more people hear about them, the more people want one. The more people highly regard them, the more the price goes up. The more people want one. The more, you know, it's just. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't pay £3,500–4,000 for a drum, obviously because I have, but. And a couple anyway, not many. I you know, I suppose if I was in a financial position to actually do it, and one came up, I would buy the one. I would buy one. I'm not sure which version though, and that's a whole nother video, I guess, because there are different versions of that 80s Tama bell brass. I mean, I always kind of like the original one that came out sort of the late sort of 70s and or 1980 sort of period. But I also like the one with the big, thick, heavy cast hoops as well. And now I have a drum with those big, thick, heavy cast hoops on, which you're probably in for a treat with that one when I do actually do a video on it. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. But I think, do I ever think I'll own one? Probably not. Do I think I have a couple of drums that, to me, maybe come a little close? And I'm not talking about the reissue. I could possibly be happy with those ones, I think. I noticed you review certain items. Do companies send me free gear to review? Right, okay, so... This channel really never started out to being a formal sort of review channel. I know that certainly has how I know that's how it comes across sometimes. I know, I think on certain occasions I probably have specifically done a review in the context of that's how I want it to sort of go out. But so there are two sides to sort of me in here. So I have this channel which I kind of started to do just like, you know, sound files and little bits of stories and backstories on the drums that I had. And then I also basically do formal reviews for MikeDolbear.com, which some of you may be familiar with. Mike's basically a very highly renowned British drum teacher, and he's like drum teacher to the stars, although much to his probably embarrassment. So I actually do formal reviews for MikeDolbear.com. Now, in that respect, companies, I mean, I occasionally sort things out, but most of the time stuff gets sent. Mike speaks to people, or people speak to Mike, and they send me stuff, and then I do review it, and I do the videos in here, and then for the most part that gear does get sent back. Now you've got things like drumsticks. If I was to obviously, you know, tap around in here on a pair of drumsticks, there's no point in sending them back because they're used. Same with the UV2 heads, which are currently on the Club Custom here. Well, obviously I can't really send those back, so yes, I do get the benefit of, you know, the odd little benefit of having that sort of stuff, because, like I said, it's no bloody good to anyone sending it back because it's used. I mean, occasionally, you know, I've been able to buy stuff. To be honest, I bought that this week, which is a British drum company Archer snare drum, and that'll be coming up at some point in the future. So sometimes I'm able to buy the stuff if I'm able to, and I'm not stretching myself too far. But yeah, for the most part, this stuff does get sent back, and I mean, sometimes they get to enjoy it for a little bit longer. Yeah, it does for the most part. I mean, as I said, it's mostly taking cymbals out of the equation, because technically they are breakables, but I suppose it's mostly the breakables that I end up keeping, like sticks and heads and, you know, bits and pieces like that, because they're just, you can't really send them back. Do I do the same with other collectors' gear? I have. Let me see. People have spoken to me about doing that, and it's never really happened. One guy I know did actually send me his. He sent me something else to review as well, but formally review as per the last bit. I did review Paiste Signature Bronze 13x3 Piccolo a few years ago, which was a cracking drum in many ways. And Matt sent me that. He let me play with it because I'd never basically played one up to that point. And then I sent it back to him. But I mean, I'm certainly up for doing that. But it's a case of it's a case of sort of people, get me the bits and pieces to actually do that with. I do have friends that come around here occasionally. I don't think anyone's ever brought me a drum, actually. I've got one or two people that come around here fairly regularly, but no one's brought me a drum to do a video on as such. As I said, people have spoken to me about it, but it's never actually happened. So, anyway, look, yeah, wonderful set of questions, Steve. Thank you very much. Charlie, if I could only... Now, this one I did see beforehand, and, mate, that's probably the hardest question, I think... I could ever actually answer. So the question is, if I could only keep one kit, snare and set of cymbals, hi-hats, crash and ride and effect cymbal from my collection, what would I pick? Really, really hard question. I mean, I can narrow it down to two kits. Oh God. So I happened to spot that question a couple of days ago, and I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days on and off. Now, so I want to say, actually, I'll tie this in because when I was uploading this earlier on, okay, there is another question that's basically the best drum kit I've ever played and the best snare drum I've ever played. Now, I'll sort of tie those two together, actually. Right, so best kit I've ever played, Craviotto, the Craviotto that you can just see there. I think that has to be the best kit I've ever played. The only thing that stops me from saying I got that kit secondhand because for those of you that don't know, that kit there and all the drums that are associated with it were actually used on the Kylie Minogue World Tour from 2011. So if you I can't remember the name of the tour, but if you get like there is a video of the tour on knocking around. It's certainly on YouTube somewhere. That's that kit. And then there's a Leona Lewis as well. Tom Meadows playing that kit with Leona Lewis as well. And I think the only thing that stops me from absolutely saying if I could only keep one kit, it's definitely the best kit I've ever played. In terms of it being keeping one kit, the only thing that stops me from saying that is that those are not my favouriteest sizes. And I know I made a word up there. Ideally, my favourite sizes are kind of like 10, 12, 14, 16, and that kit is 13, 14, 16. I just don't dig slightly deeper toms as much as slightly smaller ones. You know what? I'm going to say best kit I've ever played, the Craviotto. Probably the one that I would keep would be the Star Walnut, which is 10, 12, 16. Oh, right. Best snare drum I've ever played. And the one okay, so I think best snare drum I've ever played. Oh, you know what? Okay, best snare drum I've ever played. Okay, I'll split that. So best metal snare drum I've probably ever played. I think in terms of just it's a Craviotto AK Diamond Series 14 6.5. It's still, yeah, I don't know, there's something about it for me. I think wood snare drum, it's going to be the Craviotto Timeless Timber 14 by 5.5. In terms of keeping one snare, I think possibly the one snare that I don't have at the moment but is currently on order, and that will be a 13x7 VK cast bell bronze snare drum with my daughter's handprint all the way around it. So my answer to that, Charlie, is basically it's a snare drum that doesn't even exist at the moment, but will do fairly soon. And as soon as I do get that, I will do a video on it. But I think that one mainly because it'll have, as I said, it'll have my daughter's paw print on it, and that'll be the most special one, I think. Set of cymbals, right? Okay. Irony. I'm wearing a Paiste jacket. It would probably be my little set K's actually. I've got a set of old 80s new beats which I kind of like, and I'm a lifelong Paiste person, but I think there's something about those new beats that just works. In terms of a crash, I think maybe an 18 or 19 inch K thin, ride cymbal, or both. Ride cymbal, my favourite ride cymbal, I think, and I wouldn't say I do it justice, but is the Constantinople Renaissance ride, the 20 and the 22. I think they're both very different instruments, but I really liked the 22 an awful lot when I got hold of that. And then the 20 came out, and they're slightly, it's variations on a theme. I think they're both fantastic instruments. And I don't profess to play them properly, but excuse me. Yeah, the 20 or the 22-inch Renaissance. Effects cymbal though. You know what? I'm going to say the most. I've got 6-inch splashes by Paiste, Zildjian, and Meinl. The Meinl being the Byzance, and I think that is the most perfect splash sound that I have ever, certainly that I have, that I've probably ever heard. It's just kind of that light fluttery sound to it, which I really like an awful lot. In terms of like, I think closer runner would be the 10-inch K splash, which I have, which actually until I got that 6 was probably my favourite splash. I've got other effect cymbals. I mean, I even have it, which I don't think I've featured on a video here. I have a Roctagon. So any of you not old enough to really I know these were fairly sort of in the catalogue still fairly recently, but these were big in the 80s, and that's why I kind of wanted one. Now, and I wouldn't say this is, I mean, they're literally called Roctagons. So I'd say it's kind of like the Ozone stuff without the holes. I mean, slightly different, but I mean, yeah, who the hell? I mean, you're never going to see that down a pub, are you? It's great. I may take that with me tomorrow, actually, just for a laugh. But yeah, So that's kind of my answer to those two questions. Yeah, I think if the Craviotto had been in my size, if the Craviotto had been the kit that I ordered myself, it would have been in smaller sizes, and that would have basically been the kit I kept and the best ever kit. But so I hope that answers all of those. Right, okay, Graham. Just how big is my shed, dude? It's like the TARDIS. I think, right. So the actual. I mean, the studio's split into 2 rooms. Although, I mean, you probably could tell if I whizzed round that it was 2 rooms. But what you might not be able to see, you'll probably see it in some of the very old videos that I did from like 5 years ago. But so this where I'm in now was the live room. This was previously used as a project studio. This is actually in my garden. It was previously used as a project studio, and this was the live room. And right behind where the camera is, and behind all the shelving and stuff, there's actually there's actually a glass window, and down in the corner there's a hole in the wall where the all the cabling went through. And then in the other room, which is now sort of mostly the snare drum and cymbal room, it was the control room, and there was all holes in the wall where the guy had mounted everything. And but in terms of meterage, I think, if I remember rightly, it was about 6 meters by 3 meters, so 6 meters that way and 3 meters that way. It might be fractionally more. It might be 7 meters long. I mean, this is externally, but that was why I probably should have looked up the plans actually. So what I'll do, I'll say it's about 7 meters by 3 meters, and then the ceiling's probably about another 3 meters. 3 meters, 1, 2, yeah, probably about another 3 meters. But what I'll try and do is I'll look up the plans and I'll put them on the screen. But it is about sort of 7 meters long by 3. And as I said, it's split into 2 rooms. So, right, okay, right. In the 70s and 80s, bottomless or concert toms were all the rage. Do I have any, or can I demonstrate? They were very loud and sounded fine when tuned low. Some of the very famous drummers were using them, especially in the 70s. Absolutely. Now, I had literally had one concert tom. And I had it for years. I mean, this was a long time ago as well. I had it for years. It was a Premier one. I think it was like an APK or maybe a Royale or something like that. It was white, and I didn't use it very often. And tell a lie, actually no, tell a lie. 2. I have 2. So I've got a 6-inch somewhere, which is probably in a flight case somewhere. Which I've got a 6 by probably 8, which I tag along to my XPK, so I can do the whole full Nico McBrain thing, because that goes 6 to 18-inch toms. And then I had this 10-inch tom, concert tom as well, which I subsequently, years later, got someone to cut in half for me, and I used half of it as a little sort of practice pad stroke trigger drum, which I subsequently gave to a friend's little boy to play with some sticks and stuff, so he could annoy the hell out of his dad playing drums quietly. So, right, no, actually, to be honest, no, I haven't got any concert toms. I mean, the only thing I really found with concert toms, I mean, I think I've probably played them, but I've not actually, had any here, is that if you want to, if you got like a regular tom, you can hit it in the middle and you get all the sort of attack and sustain, and you get all the joy of the bottom head. Obviously with a concert tom you don't have the bottom head, but if you want to get the attacky sound, you hit it in the middle, and if you want to get the tone, you hit it around the edge. And when I have actually found myself in the situation, usually in rehearsal rooms where the drum kit's terrible and the bottom head's got a hole in it or just doesn't exist. I've taken that on board, and you try and sort of adapt how you play. And but yeah, I mean, I kind of like the I mean, I suppose the classic concert tom sound is maybe not the classic one, but the classic one for me is Phil Collins, and subsequently now his boy's doing playing the same kit, and they're all concert toms. They've never really been my thing, but having said that, if I was in a band or musically needed something like that, I could possibly try and go and, well, I don't know if I'd go and buy some, but I certainly may consider taking the bottom heads off. See, right, you got me there, mate. Sorry. Where are we? Graham, thank you for the comment. Right, Alan, would I ever consider doing some snare compare type videos where I A/B two snares? Yes, I would. I tell you what would be interesting and would be possibly helpful in that regard. First of all, I need to find the time to do it, which is a little bit more pressing these days, but for me. But which is why most of the time you see me wearing the same clothes in half these videos, is because I do them all at the same time. But what I would say is if you guys see a drum that you know I have, or most of them anyway now, if you see a drum that you wouldn't mind me doing an A/B against, and I still have it, and chances are I will, let me know. I mean, I'm quite happy to do that. The only time I've really done that, I did a comparison of the 14-inch, 14.5.5 Timeless Timber against the 14.5 Star Reserve 1 snare drum. That's kind of the only time I've really done that, and it was really because someone asked me about it, and it was just easier. The wife was out, so I went in the house and did it, and it was a lot easier to do it there. But I'm quite happy to do that. If anyone, or Alan, if you want to, suggest some drums, I'm more than happy to do that. But yeah. Well, look, guys, if you want to see more of this in the future, obviously, please do let me know. Ask me questions, I'll save them up. But that was kind of fun. I don't even know how long that was. But anyway, look, I hope that was interesting. Hope that was fun. I will be getting back to the regular sort of snare drum stuff as well. But thank you for watching, if you've made it this far. And I'll see you again. Thanks. Bye.